Welcome to the Fear and Greed Business Interview. I'm Sean Aylmer. Is the shift to electric vehicles losing momentum? Last week, Australian EV charging company Tritium went into administration just 2 years after the CEO stood alongside US President Joe Biden at a press conference promoting the technology as the future of charging. Then, in the March quarter, Tesla sales fell well short of expectations, around 387,000. We're supposed to deliver about 450,000. Locally, there was a record number of EVs sold in March, but the electric share of the market actually went backwards. At the same time, the International Energy Agency is forecasting electric car sales to hit 17 million this year. That's 3 million more than last year. So what is the outlook for electric vehicles right now? Could we be seeing some of the initial enthusiasm waning and maybe a longer-term shift towards hybrid vehicles instead, particularly in Australia? Whenever we have a question about cars of any variety, we go to Trent Nikolic, the managing editor of drive.com.au, the absolute guru of all things vehicles related. Trent, welcome back to Fear and Greed.
Hello, mate. Thank you for the intro, and it's a pleasure to be back.
Now, I know we've got lots to talk about, but you've been driving an EV around Australia. Is that right? How'd it go?
Yeah, it's going slowly, mate. There's been a lot of sitting on the side of the road waiting for the vehicle to charge. And one of the reasons we did it, so we're doing a series of TV episodes for a show that we do on Channel 9, but one of the reasons that we did it was just to have a look at some of the issues with charging in remote and regional areas and have a look at some of the realities, because plenty of people are out there, you know, speaking the virtues of electric cars and talking about all of the things that they do well. But you find even when you speak to someone who owns an electric vehicle, they're willing, especially on camera, if we say we're going to interview them and ask them some questions, they have this remarkable tendency to tell us all the amazing and wonderful things. And then when you turn the camera off, they say, oh, yeah, but we had a problem with this, and but this charger didn't work, and but we got stuck here.
So is that the main issue, is charging, the fact that you've got to plan your trip plus the time to charge? It's not like you can fill it up in 5 minutes.
No. This is the big issue, Sean, absolutely. Electric vehicles in isolation are fantastic. They're great things to drive. They're fast, they're quiet, they're refined, they're comfortable. They've got really good response in terms of how they react to you as the driver. They're really enjoyable things to drive. There's absolutely nothing wrong with the driving experience of an electric vehicle. The two barriers to them in a country like Australia are, one, price, because they're still too expensive, especially when you compare them to an equivalent internal combustion vehicle. And then two, the public charging. It's all well and good to say that I can charge it overnight at home, or I can charge it during the day at work if my office or my, workplace provides charging for me. That's fine. If you've got access to that, no problem at all. But when you're out on the road and you're relying on public charging infrastructure, we are absolutely nowhere close to where we need to be, even for the number of electric vehicles that we have on the road in Australia now, let alone what the projections would forecast that we might have in 5 or 10 years.
So that brings us to Tritium, which was focusing on manufacturing these charging stations that had sort of pushed into the US away from Australia. I don't know whether you know much about the Tritium story. You know, it's kind of what went wrong there, but is there a solution? I suppose with the charging, is there a solution yet for that?
Yeah, so on one hand, your sort of patriotic way of looking at it is to be sad, that an Australian company or a largely Australian company hasn't worked out and hasn't succeeded. But on the other hand, I'm just left with a lot of these charging solutions around the world thinking to myself that they were built largely on the premise of government incentives and injections of money to help them set up a business that may not have been either A, planned particularly well, or B, profitable in real terms. Because, if you and I go and start up a restaurant tomorrow with our own money, we're going to do it very differently to if we started up with, $1 million that the government's given us and we don't really care too much about what 5 or 10 years down the road looks like. And I wonder, with some of this infrastructure, and Tritium is probably a good example, it was just set up in such a way that they rushed it out, didn't really plan it correctly, and maybe it was never going to work from the outset.
Are we very close to having a solution where I can pull into a charging station and fill up even in 10 minutes rather than 2.5 hours?
We're close in terms of the technology being available. Like if you can access a 350 kilowatt charger, you can put some real charge into your battery very quickly. But when I speak to engineers around the world, one of the barriers to charging them really quickly is heat. And the more often you do it, the more damage you're doing to the battery pack. They don't love it. They don't like being superheated when you do that. So that's an issue as well. But in real terms, are those 350 kilowatt chargers broadly available around Australia? No. Will they be broadly available anytime soon? I doubt it. And then if you're talking about 50 kilowatt chargers, and you've got a vehicle like the Kia EV9 that we've been driving at the moment, and this is real basic maths, right? But if you're driving an EV9 like we are with a 100 kilowatt hour battery, if you've got that down to 50%, you are on that 50 kilowatt charger for an hour minimum. If you're down near 10 or 20%, it's going to be closer to 2 hours. And for a lot of people, in a lot of instances, I mean, picture mum and dad and two young kids doing a road trip. Do they want to be stuck on the side of the road in 38-degree heat with two screaming kids for 2 hours? I don't think so.
Stay with me, Trent. We'll be back in a minute. I'm speaking to Trent Nikolic, Managing Editor of drive.com.au. Okay, so what is the future for EVs in Australia? I suppose, I mean, rather than going too broad to begin with, in the last couple of days, Tesla's come out, Elon Musk's come out and said he's going to pull forward production of cheaper EVs. Now, I mean, there's probably still a way to go, and presumably that happens in China and the US first. But do you think it will hit Australia? And is that enough to make a difference, or is this a hybrid country?
Look, at the moment, we're a hybrid country. There's no doubt about that. I think if Australians had a choice right now broadly between an electric vehicle and a hybrid, they'd take a hybrid 10 to 1, I would estimate, because it makes a lot more sense and it's a lot easier for them to use. I think what Elon Musk has said about more affordable electric vehicles absolutely uncategorically would have to happen if you're going to get more people to buy them, because the biggest barrier at the moment is price. There's absolutely no doubt about that. So I think more affordable electric vehicles on sale would make a difference. However, the really interesting thing to sit back sort of from the outside and watch is, have we reached a point now where the initial take-up from people who are genuinely interested in buying an electric vehicle has started to tail off a little bit? And now the companies are facing the hard sell. Now they have to go out and convince people who don't really want one, who an electric vehicle won't really work for right now. Do the manufacturers now have to try to force them to buy an electric vehicle because the people who really want one have already got one?
So in terms of the big sellers now, and these are the internal combustion, the Ford Rangers, the Toyota Hilux, etc., is there an EV equivalent that's going to do the job for tradies that needs to be done?
Yeah, see, this is the other great question, right? So when we say EV equivalent, yes, there is an electric vehicle that looks like a Ranger or a Hilux. So there's an LDV, electric dual cab. There is now a company in Queensland called AusEV that's converting the F-150 Lightning, which is a full-size F-150 that's electric. They look like a regular pickup or a dual cab. But when we say equivalent, they don't perform anything like them, because if you load them up or put a caravan behind it or a big trailer, they're going to cut their range in half and you're going to be left doing 200 kilometres or 150 Ks on a charge. Plus, you're spending an inordinate amount more money on them to buy them in the first place. So I think the real challenge for any manufacturer anywhere in the world is to come up with, I guess, a believable solution for tradies and work vehicles, because dual cabs, single cabs with alloy trays, vans, light trucks, they're the real challenge to make them electric and to make them efficient when they're electric. That's the real challenge.
Okay, Trent, I've asked you this question a few years ago because I'm again in the market to buy a car.
I know what you're going to ask me.
Well, to be honest, we actually, Jackie, my partner, has a hybrid, a RAV4 hybrid, which I think is about as good a car as I have ever driven, at particularly in that price range. What are the best hybrids? What are the ones I should be looking at?
Look, at the moment, and it's really quite interesting that Toyota really still is setting the standard in terms of how a hybrid works and how you integrate a hybrid into your life. The other one that I'd recommend you and your partner have a look at is the Nissan X-Trail e-Power. So it's a hybrid, but it's a little bit different. It's got a small petrol engine that works as a generator. The generator charges a battery pack, which then drives electric motors. So the petrol engine never drives the car, which with your RAV4 it does. So I think Nissan's e-Power system is a really good one, and it's a new solution and a new alternative to have a look at. Hyundai hybrids are tending to be quite efficient as well, but I still think the Toyota systems really do set the standard.
Okay. It does sound, though, that the Nissan is a little bit more hybrid, or a little bit more EV than internal combustion.
Yeah, it's a little bit more of a step towards an electric vehicle, because what you get with that is you get the sort of sensation and feedback of driving an electric vehicle without the issues of charging, because you just fill up a petrol tank as you would be accustomed to. So I think it's one that people should have a look at if they want to make a half step towards an electric vehicle. And I certainly think if you live in the city, if you never do long road trips, if you don't tow anything, or if you're a two-car family, I certainly think you could consider an electric vehicle. There's no doubt about that. But I think for a lot of Australians, they're just not practical yet.
Trent, thank you for talking to Fear and Greed.
My pleasure, mate. Thank you.
That was Trent Nikolic, Managing Editor of drive.com.au, and keep an eye out for that show on Nine Network, Trent driving around the country in an EV. This is the Fear and Greed Business Interview. Join us every morning for the full episode of Fear and Greed, daily business news for people who make their own decisions. I'm Sean Aylmer. Enjoy your day.